You ever wanted to see a review on a fake Toyota? Honestly, me neither. But we're still going to check out the 09 Scion XD with 400,000 miles. And we are going to decide if it is a buy or if it's a bust. That's right, we got the Scion XD behind me, and it is not often that we come across a car that I have almost no clue about, not ridden in, don't know anything about, never owned. But that's the case for this Scion behind me. I almost knew nothing about them, and I've done extensive research to try to find out the best info on them that I can for you guys, and go over the common problems, the good, the bad, the ugly on these sort of oddball cars. Walking around the outside of the Scion here, it is a quirky sort of car. Now, there has been lots of cars through the years built that were kind of quirky. I think of Saturn, I think of the Chevy Sonic. Now, that was not its own brand, kind of like Scion and Saturn. But these were definitely targeted to younger folks who were looking for a cheap, inexpensive runner. They were a little cheaper than Toyotas. A lot of people call them a fake Toyota. As you can see, though, around the outside, the clear coat is pretty much gone everywhere that was flat on the car. The rest of the paint shines nice, and on this side there is no rust. It didn't fare as well on the passenger side, though. Coming around to the passenger side, like I said, we got rust really, really bad on the rocker panels. This is a Northeast car, so that's something you want to look at. Luckily, it's not terribly structural, but you are getting into it. If you're in a state with inspections, that's probably getting pretty rough for it passing inspection there. Everything else other than the paint and the rust, a little bit of oxidation on the headlights, it looks okay for a car with 400,000 miles. The clear coat definitely kills it, and the style itself is quirky. I'll let that up to you guys whether you like it or don't like it, but it is unique. Under the hood of the Scion here, we have a 1.8 liter four-cylinder engine that pops out a whopping 128 horsepower and 125 pound-feet of torque. That is absolutely abysmal even for 2009 and a small car. Speed was not of the essence in the Scion. Even they may look sporty, but they were not. I'm going to clear the air on one other thing while we're here, and that is that the gnats are absolutely nuts today. They're flying all in front of my face. You can probably see them on camera. If it's distracting for you, I promise it is 3 times more distracting for me. With this engine, it's actually a pretty reliable engine. 400,000 miles on the car and 200,000 on the engine. Yes, the engine has been replaced in this car. Now, the reason that the engines on these, the issues come from oil consumption. Oil consumption is the #1 problem with these. If you keep oil in them, they are very, very reliable. If you don't, well, you have common non-having oil problems, which affects basically everything with the engine. One of the common things that people talk about is timing noise, like rattles and things on startup, which is timing related. And that is because they're probably not keeping them full of oil. If you're not keeping up on the oil, you'll also run into things like rod knock and just basically destroying your engine. So you've got to keep them topped up with oil. If you do that, you're pretty much good to go. This car is equipped with the 5-speed manual transmission, which has proven to be pretty reliable. The automatics are actually fairly reliable. You're definitely getting the Toyota reliability on these cars overall. Even though people call them a fake Toyota, they're really not. And in fact, the registration on these cars says Toyota. It's like a Toyota Scion, even though their badge just as a Scion. It's confusing for me, it's confusing for you. Not the best branding in the world, but there's obviously positives to Toyota, and these cars share it. Now looking at the inside, if you've watched any of my other videos regarding Toyotas, I have not been a fan, especially of their older cars, up until about 2007, 8, 9, somewhere there, of their interiors. I really thought that they could have done a lot better on design and everything. These do look a little bit better, but you can tell that they use some cheaper materials than other Toyotas. The interior in here has actually worn pretty well. The dash is not cracked, not a ton of fading. It has some age-related stuff as far as just use. It's a little bit dirty. It's, things that you would expect after 400,000 miles. What I tend to notice is the cheapest interiors in the automotive industry generally wear the best. There's less to break. They're not doing leather where it stretches and it, you know, doesn't look as nice after a few years. So the hard plastics generally, unless they crack, hold up better than almost anything. And this is 100% plastic. There is nothing really soft to touch anywhere inside this car. It is a cheap feeling car, looking, everything like that. I will say that all the electronics, everything like that, have held up with Toyota reliability, except for one thing. They were marketing these cars to younger people, as I said. They put a Pioneer branded head unit in that looks like an aftermarket head unit. However, they stopped updating them very, very early on. So like all your GPS, all that type of stuff, you couldn't even hardly use because Pioneer just dropped all support for it. It functions okay, but it's not up to date. Two other things that I thought are kind of interesting is on these cars. This was a low production one. It is Release Series 2.0. It has lighted door sills down here and has a badge. This car is number 212 of 1600. And obviously Toyota didn't even sell a whole lot of them anyways because Scion is gone by the wayside. Now moving to the back seat, the legroom is actually quite impressive. This seat is where I would sit. I got plenty, not a problem. The back sits in a really straight, sort of stiff manner, and my headroom, if I was any taller, I would be hitting my head on the ceiling. So it's actually got a little bit more room maybe than you would think when you look at the outside of the car, but it's not a great place to be. I would not really want to be a passenger long term in here, but it does the job. Everything in the back is very basic, other than you do actually have cup holders for right, left, and center, which is kind of impressive. The seat itself is not wide enough to fit 3 adults by any stretch. Like, I can't even imagine that. So it's pretty much 2 adults. Honestly, even a child in the center would be pretty tough. All right, we are pulling out onto the road here, and the engine is so quiet in this thing. It really does run smooth and doesn't use any oil, anything like that. The first thing that I notice is it has no power. I mean, like second and third gear are just terrible. It is very, very slow. As far as everything else, it actually feels okay. Suspension feels all right. We do have a little bit of a wheel bearing noise, so that's something that's going to have to be repaired. Not surprising after 400,000 miles. The fuel mileage for this thing is like 28 and 33 on the highway, which is okay. But for as low power as it is, I really feel like this thing should be up in the 35 to 40 range. Because that's really the only reason I accept there to be no power, is if I'm getting really, really good fuel mileage. It is fairly quiet inside. Other than that wheel bearing I can hear, and the suspension feels pretty good too. As we're going down the road here, one thing I want to mention is check engine light is on. So is the TPMS. I'm not worried about TPMS at all because they're on every car of this age. The check engine light, though, is on for EVAP codes, which is not uncommon. However, on these, the EVAP canisters to go bad is a pretty common issue. More so, I mean, the gas cap is always the #1 issue, but the EVAP canister on these goes bad more often than it should. We are going to do a little pull here. Oh my goodness. It is, yeah, it's just slow. It's like they took the designers from the regular Toyota cars and they were like, all right guys, get excited. And then they did some math and this is what they came up with. No, I am joking around. They're definitely that target to the younger crowd. They obviously didn't really catch on to the younger crowd too much. And they went for the boring Toyota driving experience. Back from the test drive here, and now it is time to decide if this thing is a buy or a bust. Like I said at the beginning of the video, it's very rare that I go into something completely blind and I'm researching it for the first time. It's very possible that I missed something on these because I am not the biggest expert on these cars, but I have done extensive research to get the best info for you guys. I think these cars have a lot of positives. And that is that, I mean, basically it's a Toyota underpinning underneath there. And you get the reliability associated with that. The fuel mileage should be better. The slow driving experience is a little bit tough, but it does drive okay once you're up to speed, but merging is a concern. The pricing on these things really couldn't get much cheaper, and that is because they are sort of unknown. They are the cheap Toyota, and there's a lot of things on the interior that you can tell that. These run about $1,500 to $3,000 if you get a really nice one, which I think for a reliable Toyota-based car is a pretty good deal. They do have a few more problems in their quirkier, and the fuel mileage isn't really what it should be. And I think in general, they just feel cheap. While I'm not super enthusiastic about it, we are going to call the Scion a buy. It is sort of narrow because of how cheap they feel, but I don't think you can go wrong for getting a cheap car that does the job and keeps you out of car payments. With that being said, I want to know your guys' thoughts. If you've had a Scion, if you know anything extra about them, I'd love to hear your comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Yeah. Please tell me that I can't, that I won't, that I fail, that I'll never make it out, yeah. Please tell me all the bad, never good, fill my head full of every single doubt, yeah. Please say any negative thoughts, I pop off when I hear people say I cannot. I get off to the thought of proving everyone wrong, I won't stop to the top, so